Embracing one's talents and sharing personal testimony for the greater good is a powerful act that can profoundly impact both individuals and society as a whole. When we acknowledge and nurture these innate abilities, we unlock our true potential and contribute to the betterment of the world around us. Jestina Weems is an accomplished author, touching the hearts of young readers with her cherished children's book, My Goal and Ralph. Beyond her literary achievements, she's a beacon of hope as the founder of Victims to Victory. This nonprofit organization utilizes the healing power of art to guide children and young adults on their journey to recovery from trauma. In her tireless efforts to promote diversity and support people of color in the business world, Jestina found the O.MA Black National Committee, creating invaluable opportunities and resources for aspiring entrepreneurs. As if that weren't enough, she is the driving force behind Mob Styles, a professional flash mob company that spreads joy and wonder through captivating performances. Today, Jestina joins Maria Romano to share her unwavering faith, belief in the power of manifestation, and the profound importance of embracing our talents. Prepare to be inspired as she illuminates the path toward personal growth and shares the transformative strength of sharing our testimonies for the betterment of all.
Hello, everybody. Maria Romano here from True Love Nuts. Oh my God, I'm girl crushing today. I've got a treat for you. First of all the way from the East Coast, I have Jestina Weems. So
Yes.
First say hi, everybody.
Hello, lovely people.
Well, it's such an honor and a treat to have you on the show today. And, you know, my community is built up of people here. It's not just Vegas, it's all over. My platform is love. So you might not know a little bit. Most people know I'm a wedding officiant and I teach people how to do what I do. But I always love bringing people on that have a passion and a purpose and love life and love people and want to change the world. Because when we have that mindset of going out and looking through the lens, a different lens of loving everybody, and that makes all, and having compassion and empathy and loving the world makes a difference. So today, I'm so thrilled to have her today. And I want to just read a little bit about her so you have an idea. So I have to share with you because I was so fascinated with her. She is a published author, advocate, and entrepreneur. She is the author of a beloved children's book, My Goal and Ralph, and the founder of Victims to Victory, a nonprofit that uses art to help children and young adults heal from trauma. She also founded the O.MA Black National Committee, supporting people of color in business and grant opportunities. Jestina is the creative force behind Mob Styles, a professional flash mob company, and co-founder of Nana's, a cannabis-infused catering service. She's empowered individuals through Me Sexual, a program for survivors of sexual abuse, and co-produces the musical We Are the Dream, which I watched some of that interview with you and your mom. I'm going to talk about that. And the documentary, Just Trying to Make It. As a transformational speaker, Jestina shares her inspiring message of resilience and empowerment. Oh my God. I mean, let me just tell you, that is amazing. I don't know where to start. So let's talk about, first, let me just tell everybody the reason I brought Jestina on. I would have never met her. I am one of the educators that was invited to come to David Tutera's experience in the Caymans, and Jestina, of course, is going back. She is going to be speaking to. We're going to talk about that, but I really want to talk a little bit about you. Talk a little bit about your background. I know you've had tragedy, so but I love that, you know, victim to victory. Could you give us just a couple of minutes or 3 minutes telling us about a little bit?
Yes.
Of that?
So that was my first organization that I started. I actually lost my father at 8 years old to police brutality, and something I've been fighting for justice. Now we live in a society that's open to what actually goes on, or the oppression of, you know, people of color. And then I lost a brother to leukemia and another brother to gun violence. So that's where Michael and Ralph comes in. I use their memory in the book, Michael and Ralph, that was their name. And then really giving young people the tools to really get over trauma. Because I felt like when I was going through those things, I didn't have the tools and resources that I needed to deal with the trauma. And I was also going through sexual abuse. So I grew up kind of angry, like introverted to myself, didn't have much joy because I didn't have the tools. And a lot of times we need to tap into like different things. I know therapy is great. I love going to therapy. I have a therapist, but I'm also an artist. I'm a creative. So I've learned to really express myself through the art. So that's something that I really wanted to teach young people, that, you know, their trauma could be actually stepping stones to their success. And how can we translate that in our art without setting ourselves back or hindering ourselves in the depression? Because I think a lot of times we can get caught up in almost like the woe is me and this is what happened, right? Especially when it feels like trauma back to back to back. So I feel like we really need to tap into our talents, which I believe God gave us all talents, and really be able to kind of push through the pain and present our best self.
Well, and you know, this actually, you're a testimony to that, because most people would stay in that victim mentality. And that is true, because I heard another speaker, I'm trying to think, I can't remember her name right now, who also had tragedy in her life. Probably very similar to yours. She was also abused sexually, which is that to me, the ultimate. Okay. I mean, much as I don't like gun violence, I mean, when we think about sexual abuse, it's just something you don't ever want to see. And
Yeah,
not
because
just
it
young.
crosses all lines.
Right,
And I think
right,
that's the thing about trauma. It's not like specific to any race or any
right.
gender. You know, as you get older, you realize a lot of us share a lot of the same
And
pain, but we grow up in a society that almost shows us to filter everything that's like too much to talk about. So I try to teach people, like, let's not live with this filter on. Let's really tap in and really help people to heal, because by sharing your testimony actually helps you and somebody else at the
you
same
know,
time.
and that's so true. And this girl, Stacey Flowers, I believe that's her name. And she was talking about how she went through the abuse. And then later on afterwards, people were lined up. And what they said, and there was one woman that was just looking at her, and she says, "You don't look like a girl that's been sexually abused or has gone through trauma." And you know what? We have a tendency of sometimes thinking we have to stay in a mold. And I'm sure you've worked and have definitely made an impact on other people's lives. But I love the art side. Now you dance, which is art too. But when you're talking
Yep.
about, are you talking about coloring? Are you talking about art? Are you talking about the art of
So
dance?
music, I've been
Great.
expressing myself through music since I was like 15, 16. I think the first song I wrote was actually for my dad and how I was able to express that way. And then writing has always been an outlet for me. And I think growing up and going through that stuff, I struggled in school, right? So it was like always, I never wanted to share my writing because it's like, oh, somebody's going to point out some grammar errors or blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, that's something else you also have to push through, right? Some of your weaknesses sometimes. So to find resources or tools that actually strengthen your weaknesses and give you the courage and the ability to put yourself out there. So now, like I said, I write books, I write scripts, and I'm always like, ew, thank you, Grammarly. Thank you this for making me like present my best self. So that's what I try to like encourage people, because a lot of times with our trauma, we get hindered in our weaknesses. And we live in a society today where we have so many tools and resources that can really give you the ability to present your best self. And that's what I try to give people, that perspective, and be like, okay, well, let's try this, let's do this, so that they're comfortable inside their own skin.
And that is so true. And you know, and it's interesting because you talked about therapy. I'm a big fan of therapy. And I think therapy definitely makes a difference. But sometimes when you can relate, I mean, everyone's situation is different. There's no question about that. But when you can relate to somebody like you, and I love that because you're inspiring and aspiring people to do better. And that's something that what happens, I think, motivational speakers sometimes they want to, you know, they want people to aspire to be like them, but you got to really inspire them. So what's your secret of helping them tap in to that besides, you know, how do you,
Well,
if you're
it's really
speaking,
focusing on what their wants and their needs are, right? And being a supportive person to be like, a lot of people don't have the encouragement, right? They feel like, oh, I put this on social media and I'm not getting the likes or comments, or my family never encouraged me to do this. So a lot of times people just need to hear that, yes, you can. You know, you were already born with the talents that you need to succeed. But a lot of times people need to hear that. And I feel like that's the biggest key for people. They just need to be like, oh, you're absolutely right. And to be like, you know, some people might, you know, I go fluctuate between my body weight. I have 2 kids, right? And even sometimes we put things on and we judge ourselves like, ooh. And I tell people, I don't care how big or small the person is. The best thing a person can have when they put something on is confidence. Like confidence, like will shed it all. Like, okay, I can see the confidence in the way that they walk and the way they present themselves, and that can make the world a difference. So I have people now that be like, I looked in the mirror and at first I was like, ew, but then I turned around and I kind of gave myself affirmations like, I look good, I love myself, and they turn back around and they see a whole different person, and they're able just to step outside to be like, this is who I am, and presenting but just the confidence within themselves. So that's what I try to like give people to like, what do you need to hear, and know that, you know, not everybody's going to be on your level, but we also live in a society in ways where we can tap into people who are on our level. But we have to be able to kind of step outside our comfort zone sometimes, step outside our own environments, why might just be our community, just be our family who kind of just know us as average. But I don't think anybody's average. I just think everybody truly needs to tap into their talents. And that in itself can give you this a whole different look at life, because sometimes we get in a routine, like I go to work, I take care of my kids, and we kind of lose focus on self, and then we let go of some of the things that we love to do, whether it's painting or just finding somebody else. So sometimes, like I said, it's just telling people so that they hear it for themselves. It might be the first time they ever hear it about how great they truly are.
Oh, and that is so true. And I love that. So I want to take a moment. Let's back up. I listened to the interview that your mother and your mother had about We Are the Dream. Now, your mother inspired to be an actress. She says that she obviously she's channeling that. She's still doing that in New Hampshire. Am I correct? Is she still?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And she was raised in Massachusetts, she said?
Correct.
Okay, she talked about small town. Culturally, it was only 2 Black families. It must have been extremely different. I'm the Bronx girl, even though I'm a lot older than you. You know, I grew up multicultural, but so I find that so interesting. And but share with me, she talked about We Are the Dream, which you kind of rewrote. How was that collaboration? First of all, your mother. Let's talk about what.
So me and my mother almost do everything together. Like the definition of smothered, like the show, is probably me and my mom. She lives in New Hampshire and I live in New York, but we still do almost everything together. It's like idea comes and it's like, so how are you going to work together on it some way, somehow? But she does, like she said, she always wanted to be an actor. But what I love about my mom, she didn't focus on, oh, I didn't make it to the TV. She's like, well, I'm a stage manager, I'm a director. Like she always found her way into the element because that's what just makes her happy. So she's actually a theater coach at the Gunkwith Theater. And she found this play called We Are the Dream, which was just for kids. And she's like, I love it. It was about Martin Luther King, but she wanted to adapt the play so that it was like more adult friendly. We can bring in an older cast. So I had written a song, one song called Unity, after George Floyd had passed, you know, just talking about how together we need to come together and just lift our voices up. And she was like, I would love to use this song for my play. So it went from one song to, can you write me 12 more songs? And I was like, okay. So that in itself just became a whole musical. And we, for the last couple of years, have been pushing it, promoting it. Everything's a process when you're like a creative and you really want to make things big, because it's like 3 elements. It's like live performance, film, and then we're trying to introduce holograms. So there's 3 elements to it, because me and my mother never do anything small. Thank you, David Tatira, dream big. That's what we do all the time. So we actually we performed it at the SVA in New York, just as like a reading. And then we're like, okay, we got to film this. So we went out to Atlanta and we filmed it there. And now we're like, okay, who's going to do this hologram for us? But my mom, no matter what, like I said, she taps into theater or acting some way, somehow, because for her, that's her talent. And she's not going to let that go to waste. And she loves working with kids. So like I said, she found it at the Gunkwith Theater where she works through the summertime. And then she was like, I want to make this into a whole production for adults and really give, because she grew up when Martin Luther King was assassinated. So for her to adapt it and kind of tell the story from her own perspective and really show, like, I learned so much. Just, we think of a lot of activists like just on this movement for civil rights or for the Black community, but he was really about the poor people, and that crosses all lines, right? It's talking about how if we came together as one race, really, that we can truly make a bigger difference. So I learned a lot just working with her. But again, mostly everything we do, the Victims to Victory, some aspect of our businesses are always linked together, me and her working together.
I love that. But your mother brought up an interesting point during the interview, is people remember Martin Luther King as just for that speech, right, that he spoke about. He dreams one day of people living together, being there, but they forget he was a reverend. He was a reverend, he's a pastor. And when you come from that place, that makes all the difference. I'm a reverend. I understand that. It's very important how you move about and love people. You talk about cultures and people having stigmas. I was sharing with somebody not too long ago is that for me, the stigma is that, we're trying to bring together cultures, right? We're trying to bring together races, religions. It's ageism. You hit a certain age and people just want to cast you aside. Think about that in countries. So we're all facing in different phases of our lives, right? Some form of that. And I love, but it's getting back to what we're talking about, having the lens of love, which is what you're doing, trying to get people to move on. Justine, I love that. All right. Well, I got to switch gears a moment. We need to talk about how you met David Tutera and that you've been to his event. Let's talk about that for a second.
Talk about manifestation, because I love to manifest. Like, I feel like words are very powerful, and when you put them into action, baby, anything is possible. So I've been watching David for like 20 years on TV.
Me too.
And I was like, okay, because after I lost my dad, like the whole wedding thing for me, you're like, oh, that's never going to happen, especially if I don't have my dad there. But then I saw My Fair Weddings and I was like, I'm having the wedding of my dreams. What are you talking about? But I also just love the joy and love that David brought to each person he encountered with. And I was like, this is a different type of individual for me. So like from that day, I was like, okay, one day I am going to meet this man like in person. Is going to be everything. So I did. When I turned 30, it was my 30th birthday. I met him for the first time out in Rochester, New York. He was doing a whole dream big experience. And trust me, I tap into that whole dream big, take it to the heart. Like, yes, let's dream big. What can we do? So I met him there, and I feel like we just had this instant connection. And then I had to meet him, I'm like, I want to keep on going to these experiences. Even after I got married, I was like, I'm still going because it's the people and energy there. So I met him 3 other times after that, and he always like joke like, oh, there she is. Okay, Jestina. And he always remembered my name after like the first time. So then I joined his mentorship group, even though I'm not a wedding planner. Let me tell y'all, still join it, because he's a businessman. This man is an entrepreneur. It's not just, he can teach you so much. Even my husband being in the background, I'm like, that's great advice. That's great advice. I'm like, so during the mentorship program, he's like, Jestina. Well, I was already filming, just trying to make it my documentary, which is just kind of goes through everything we've talked about here in my life. And I was like, can I come out there? I really want to film. He's like, yes, you need to come out here for this experience. The experience was life-changing. When I say I call them my DTE family. Like, everybody there was so supportive. Like I said, you meet people who have also gone through their own stuff, but have accomplished their dreams some way, somehow. You're just learning from so many diverse groups. And I'm telling you, the love there is so real. But I saw all these speakers on this stage, and I'm like, that's going to be me. And I literally on the plane was like already writing out my speech. Like, yes, how do we get over hurdles? Like, yes, let's talk about it. And I was like, I was writing it out. So then I was like, David, I just had to ask, because sometimes we be scared to ask. And I was like, David, can I be on next year's DTE, the stage? He's like, I love you. I'll consider you to be on this year if you can send me footage of you already speaking, which God was good, because I literally had already done like 3 speaking engagements that were actually filmed up in New Hampshire for We Are the Dream. And we did that as a workshop for some of the kids up there. So I was like, God was just moving like, yes, 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 on time. So then he's like, I got the letter, like, you've been picked. I was like, but I truly, truly love David. He knows that. Like, that's my big brother. That's my mentor. He has got me through some, like, mental dark moments where you feel like giving up. And he's definitely encouraged me to become a lot of what I've become today. Cause he's an author. Okay, I can be his own like struggles with, you know, up in school, we heard that on your last podcast with him, so I learned so much from him, and I'm just so blessed to truly have him in my life. And he's truly a different type of individual, you know what I'm saying? He takes people in under his wing, and he really tries to provide opportunities, which I cannot thank him enough for.
And it sounds like he really takes the time during the DT experience to get to know everybody, because it's an intimate setting. It's not, and it always, so if you take somebody, share through your eyes what it's like going to one of the events.
First of all, the same thing you see on the My Fair Wedding, that whole setup, you're getting that same type of environment. So you get this whole magical, like, breathtaking, like, am I really here? And they send you a whole agenda, like how to dress and how to present. So you're in for a good time. But also just the speakers that he truly speaks to come on that stage and share their stories is truly transformational. Because I thought, like, okay, I just need to come there and film, talk about our relationship over the last years. But when I really sat in that room and listened to these women and men speak about not only their successes, but some of the struggles that they had to overcome, you know what I'm saying? It truly it empowers you, because it shows you that you too can overcome things and become your best self. So it just only connected more with me. And then the genuine people who really care, like, you don't really know who the speakers are until they speak. So you could be the couple of days just really just mingling and getting to know people, and then they get up there and tell their story, and you're like even more blown away. So it's not an environment where you might feel like, well, that person's a little like, he really takes the time, I feel like, to create the environment and pick the people where everybody feels inclusive. And then, like I said, baby, David on the dance floor, he is not just dancing with Joey, he's dancing anybody there. I'm like, and so many people go there just love it, but it's just intimate to him that are just truly, I came smiling for like months, the memories that I created together. And like I said, there might be other people there, but you will truly feel like it's just you and David, or just you and Joey, because they really take the time to like tap in. If they feel like, oh, you look down or something else going on, because you might tap into some real emotional things, they're going to take the time to really build you back up to where you need to be, so you don't leave this experience feeling broken. You leave this experience feeling empowered. And that's what I love about it. And like I said, I still talk to a lot of the women. We check in either once a week, once a month, every other day. There's just people besides Joey and David that you're going to leave with so much support. And a lot of times that goes back to what we were saying before. A lot of people haven't had the support around them to really feel empowered, but you leave that experience with the support that you truly need.
And that's something you just touched on. That is so important. Like, you talked about, you had manifested this. So, God does, a door doesn't close for you that God has opened. And I always feel that way. Sometimes we feel that, and really there's a door opening. We just need to recognize the signs. And I think that's the key thing is, if you were speaking to somebody today that's going through some sort of trauma in their life, maybe similar to yours, maybe not. You talk about finding help. What would your message be to that person? That's what's important, because so many people are hurting. So many people are suffering.
Well, I'm definitely like you. Jesus is my like go-to. I know that God is truly going to bring us out of situations if we truly look to him. But I know for some people that's kind of hard to believe, like who is this higher power? But I think that comes into the manifestation and really believing that you can too be okay. Because I feel like if God's providing for the birds and the bees, and I know that sounds so cliche, but it's like, if he can do it for these animals, he can do it for you. And a lot of people, I think, almost lose faith when they go through trauma, because they're like, well, why would he allow me to go through this? But one thing a woman told me one time was, we often go through things not for ourselves, but so we can help one day somebody else. And that's really sometimes what we got to look at. Like, I really try to tell people, share your testimony, because your testimony, like if more people share their testimony, I feel like more lives would be truly changed. Because again, we live in a society where, well, we don't want to talk about death. We don't want to talk about sadness, but it's not about focusing on the death or the sadness, but how you truly were able to overcome those feelings at that time. So for me, it's definitely like, because people at some points can be a little disappointing. So it's like, for me, faith truly plays into that. And I have to believe that whatever desire God put on my heart is there because God put it there. That's what he wants me to accomplish. He gives us all talents. And I feel like some of us, we don't tap into our talents, but as soon as we believe in ourselves and our talents, we are empowered. I don't think God gave us talents to waste them. You know what I'm saying? So I try to really first listen to people. Everybody's story is different and everybody has a different journey. And not every technique that works for me might not work for you. So sometimes you really got to listen to people and where they're at right now in their life, and really accept sometimes where they're at. Because a lot of times we don't want to, well, you should get over that, or you should have been over that. Like that happened when you were young, and people don't understand everybody's journey is different. But how do we teach them to mold that into something great? How do we teach them to really believe not only in themselves, but in God, who can do all things, you know, for those that who believe in him. And I truly believe, like, manifestation, I know when I ask God for something, it might not come in the time I'm like, ooh, I could have used that yesterday, but it's like Dave Deterra, that took probably 15 years. But I really had to believe, like, one day I'm going to meet this man. One day we're going to have a real close connection, right? So it's like believing that if God put that in your heart, you are going to accomplish it. The most important thing is not giving up. And a lot of times we don't accomplish things because we've already given up.
Oh, that is great advice. And you know, you talk about everybody's on a different journey, and everyone has a purpose. Okay, and you found your purpose and passion. And it sounds like you and your mom, like even your mom always wanted to be, you know, an actress, but look at how many lives she's touching, and she had you. Our bodies
I know, and that's the great things we get to hear. Like people like are participating in this play, and for us, the play is really, again, my mom, she's a minister as well, and like she said, she leads with Dr. King was a reverend. But it's really a time for us to minister to people, for us to listen to people, just like the David Teter experience. When you can actually see somebody that you can empower, you take that time to empower that person. You never know what situation God's going to have you. And you could be a janitor, but your real purpose might be inspiring those students in that hallway, because you come into work every day with a good attitude. You come into work every day with God in your heart. So I think that's really what it is. Knowing what your purpose is. For me, it was knowing through my trauma, losing my dad, that pushed me into my purpose, so to say. Like I felt like, oh, I need to be a star one day or build a platform big enough so I could tell his truth, so I could live out this fight. So I think certain things, and a lot of times trauma, when we look at it the right way, can truly push you into your purpose, but you have to accept the assignment. And not every day is going to be easy, but you have to know that you too will make it through whatever it is God's telling you to do.
So I have to bookmark that moment. God gave you an assignment, right? That was your assignment. You came into your assignment. And listen to this, everybody. What she said is powerful, powerful words. No, it truly is. Because everyone has an assignment, and we always wonder, why is this happening to me? Why? Why am I having this tragedy? Nobody should have tragedy. Nobody. We would love life to be as peaceful. It's just not the way it is. But your tragedy, you turn that, like you talk about, victim to victory.
Yeah, and sometimes that's even making you a better parent, right? Sometimes we go through trauma as children, which actually shapes us to be better parents, and we're able to nurture and create beautiful people who are going to do beautiful things in the society. But sometimes we don't even look at it like that. They still are like, oh, well, I don't have no purpose. If God gave you a child or a neighbor to you can nurture to, that is simply your assignment. And you have to believe that you are truly changing somebody's life. You might even be saving somebody's life, even though they might not come back and say, this is what you did right now. I guarantee maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, they'll be able to open up and say, you truly impacted my life. Because there's so many people now that was like, I was thinking about suicide, and you didn't even know that they were thinking about those things when they were going through those things, but they heard your words, they heard your testimony, and you allowed them to be here for one more day to impact somebody else. And it's just a ripple effect if you allow it.
I love. So what is your title of your talk that you'll be sharing at the David Tutera Experience? Tell everybody.
So manifesting and living a bold, fearless life, because sometimes that's what you got to do. Now, I haven't always been bold and fearless. Like, I had to find those tools and resources. But again, I believe manifesting what you truly want out of life and focusing on that, you will see the outcome, and it will be a beautiful one if you stay in the race. Sometimes you got to stay in the race. It's a whole marathon, y'all. It's a whole marathon.
It's so true. Now, okay, before we wrap up, I just want you to share with us, like, what's on the horizon for you besides DTE, which is wonderful. Do you have anything coming up, anything that you can share? Plus, I'm going to have any of your social media links. I don't know if you sent them to me, but you'll send, because I want my community to also reach out to you. So what's on the horizon, the summer, the fall?
So right now we are pitching the documentary, Just Trying to Make It. That's me, Jess, with the JES.
I love it, Jess.
So that people can really see the journey that I've been on, the journey that I'm on. Like I said, losing my father kind of pushed me into my purpose. And 30 years later, after losing him, never being contacted, we're actually in court, because I manifested this, y'all. And I say, one day I will get justice. So I'm actually in court. I'm representing myself against 4 other attorneys, and they all filed to dismiss the case. And I said, God is my attorney, and God will be in the heart of that judge. You know, that judge got up there and said, I'm not dismissing anything. I need y'all to help this lady get what she deserves. So I'm telling you, the big station. So we are still filming that process. We are pitching to people that so we'll be on a network or somewhere big, but I don't even care. When I started it, I said, you know what, this can go on YouTube, because I'm all about just sharing the testimony. But people who are in the industry are like, no, this is too good just to put on YouTube, girl. At least try to pitch it out. So I'm going to do a little justice and try to get it to some networks, some agents. But right now we're filming that. But I also do my daily podcast Monday through Friday. It's just 10 minutes where I just try to tap into people and just give words of encouragement. I might share some of my own truth, my own struggles that I'm going through that day, but we try to just reverse that into, you know what, God gave me a purpose, and this is what I'm going to do with it. So that's what I'm working on.
And that's on Facebook, am I correct? Where you have
Facebook
that
platform? And on Instagram under Just Trying to Make It.
Okay, so we'll get that information. I want to thank you so much for sharing, and I just love your nuggets that you shared with everybody, because I think that is so important. So in the meantime, anyone, please reach out to her if you want to make a comment, if you want to follow her, you want to buy her book. I think that is so important. And maybe you want to learn more about the David Tutera Experience. So in the meantime,
trust and believe.
That's right. In the meantime, stay healthy, happy, and safe. As I always say, spread love. Have a great day, everybody.